Tonight on Bridge City News, 4 people are dead and 6 others have been hospitalized after a tragic highway accident near Taber, Alberta early this morning. As the investigation into the airline disaster in Iran continues, a video has emerged which appears to show a missile exploding and also the moment the plane hit the ground. And the University of Lethbridge received a nice financial boost today with a donation toward its science program.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Paul Arthur.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. A tragic 2-vehicle collision early this morning near Taber, Alberta has claimed the lives of 4 people. The accident took place on Highway 36, south of Secondary Highway 875 at 7:15 a.m. when a pickup truck collided with a van, resulting in the death of the truck driver as well as the driver and 2 passengers of the van. The Halo helicopter was called out to airlift 1 victim to Lethbridge Hospital, while Stars Air Ambulance flew another to Calgary. 6 of the passengers in the van were hospitalized. The cause of the crash has not yet been determined, and RCMP continue their investigation. The University of Lethbridge got a boost in the arm today from a generous donation from 2 organizations totaling $400,000. BCN's Loris Alexander has more on that story.
It's my pleasure to announce a gift totaling $400,000 from the Power Corporation of Canada and Canada Life in support of the scientific discoveries on this.
The overall gift is significant, and it really is wonderful to see it go to such an interesting area of research, which is looking at how we bring together traditional sciences and historic sciences, Indigenous sciences, to look at critical issues like cancer and finding treatments and cures for cancer, looking at natural approaches.
The Power Corporation gift includes support to the Dr. Jim Coots Prairie Research Program, a research program headed by U of L biologist Dr. Roy Goldstein.
It feels very, very good to be receiving these gifts from the Power Corporation of Canada and from Canada Life. It's a very generous donation. It will help us improve our research, and it will help us teach our students.
We saw the work that the University of Lethbridge was doing to try and advance education in a couple of different ways when we thought the diversity of bringing different sciences together.
What we see in the University of Lethbridge is really cutting-edge research, a deep commitment to a first-class student experience here involving students actually in the research, and also the values of the place. There's clearly a deep engagement with the community of Lethbridge. It's not a town and gown division, and the way in which in the prairie research grasses there is an involvement of Indigenous elders, respect for traditional knowledge, but also really cultivating something that's new in Canada, and that is looking at our own ecosystem for the development of life-saving drugs and drugs that will improve the quality of life.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
The City of Lethbridge held an open house yesterday evening to receive community input for the Westminster Area Redevelopment Plan, a project that has been in the works since 2016. Community planner with the city, Genesis Hevia Oreo, says the evening was a night of discussion and collaboration.
We came forward with policies, and the policies were drafted in collaboration with an advisory committee that is made up of residents of the neighborhood. We've been working with this advisory committee with them over the past 2 years, and they have actually been very important in the drafting of these policies. So we came to the public, to the broader public, with existing policies, and the feedback we received aligned very much with the feedback we've heard already from the residents that live within the neighborhood. The plan comes into effect when City Council approves it. Currently, it's just a document. When City Council accepts it as a area redevelopment plan, it means that it's bylaw, and therefore it needs to be fulfilled for every development that the city gets in that area. And so the next step is to bring it forward to council.
The process included a 12-person advisory committee made up of Westminster residents. Hevia Oreo says she expects the proposal to be presented to City Council in late February. Piikani Nation RCMP found more than what they were looking for early this week when officers found hay bales that had been stolen from Pincher Creek at a residence near Brockett. Inside the home, police discovered 14 firearms and a quantity of methamphetamine. They also recovered a stolen truck. A 33-year-old man, Jesse Flett from Fort Vermilion, Alberta, is facing 34 charges. A man has been convicted of manslaughter in the death of his young son, whose lifeless body was found outside an Edmonton church in 2017. Joey Cryer had been charged with second-degree murder in the death of 19-month-old Anthony Joseph Rain, but Court of Queen's Bench Justice David Lebrenz found Cryer guilty of the lesser charge of manslaughter. Cryer's former girlfriend, Tasha Lee Doreen Mack, was also convicted of manslaughter in the death, but the Crown is appealing that verdict and asking for a new trial. Alberta doctors say they haven't ruled out a court challenge to the province's billing rule changes that physicians say could profoundly affect patient care. Dr. Christine Molnar, head of the Alberta Medical Association, says the changes could force some family and rural practices to close. The dispute revolves around the extra fees the province allows doctors to charge to see longer or more complex cases. Alberta Health says it doesn't appear those extra fees are leading to better patient care and that there could be some abuse of the system. Health Minister Tyler Shandro's department did not respond to a request for comment. Supporters of the hereditary clan chiefs of a northwestern BC First Nation have set up a new camp along a logging road to block access to a pipeline worksite on traditional territory. Wet'suwet'en First Nation served an eviction notice to Coastal GasLink this week. The company posted an injunction order Tuesday, giving opponents 72 hours to clear the path to its worksite, but it did not request enforcement. A spokesperson for Coastal GasLink says the company is committed to resolving the dispute through negotiation. John Crosbie, a former federal cabinet minister and lieutenant governor of Newfoundland and Labrador, has died at the age of 88. His death early today followed a period of declining health. His family says there has been an outpouring of support from both politicians and average citizens. Crosbie served in the governments of Prime Ministers Brian Mulroney and Joe Clark and was known as much for his sharp wit as for his politics. Crosbie ran for the leadership of the Federal Progressive Conservatives in 1983, but lost to Brian Mulroney. NB Power and Hydro-Quebec have signed 3 deals that will see Quebec sell more electricity into New Brunswick and provide help with the refurbishment of the Mactaquac hydroelectric generating station. Hydro-Quebec will export 47 terawatt-hours of electricity to New Brunswick between now and 2040 over existing power lines, expanding an agreement in place since 2012. They will also lend expertise with an issue affecting the concrete used at the Mactaquac Dam.
Today, I'm pleased to say we have reached an agreement with Hydro-Quebec. They will export a total of 47 terawatt-hours of clean electricity to New Brunswick between now and 2040. As you may know, since Mactaquac was constructed 50 years ago, we have had an issue with the alkaline in the concrete of the spillway, causing it to swell and crack. This is an issue which Hydro-Quebec has great expertise in addressing in some of their own facilities. This is why we have signed a technical collaboration agreement between Hydro-Quebec and us for part of the refurbishment of Mactaquac generating station, so we can extend the life of the plant until 2068, pending regulatory approval. The third agreement will result in discussions to explore potential new construction of additional interconnections between Quebec and New Brunswick.
We are pleased to participate in the project to refurbish the Mactaquac hydroelectric generating station. We understand how important it is to ensure the long-term sustainability of these facilities, and we are happy to share the expertise of Hydro-Quebec as acquired over the years.
Canadian universities used to have a reputation for being bastions of free speech and freedom to debate controversial ideas, but that reputation has been fading, that according to the president of the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms.
But we have reason to believe that the university is scared of Antifa violence, and so they want to pander to Antifa and please Antifa, which is very, very problematic, because if you don't stand up to these groups and if you allow them to dictate who can and cannot speak, you've completely lost the free society. And universities, of all places, should be upholding free speech rights.
We will hear more about the UBC situation and other cases with the entire John Carpe interview coming up in the second half of today's broadcast. The Secretary of Ukraine's National Security Council says 7 possible causes are under investigation in Wednesday's Ukrainian jetliner crash in Iran. Alexei Danilov told a Swedish broadcaster that Ukrainian experts are working at the site near Tehran. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and other Western leaders say the plane appears to have been hit by a surface-to-air missile, an allegation that Iran denies. However, video has emerged which appears to show the moment a Ukrainian jetliner plummeted and crashed into the ground. The head of Iran's investigation team into the crash tells state television that Tehran will use expert help from Russia, Ukraine, France, and Canada if they cannot recover data from the plane's recorders. Canada's Transportation Safety Board says it is making arrangements for investigators to travel to Tehran. Hundreds of people gathered on Parliament Hill last night and also in Toronto to attend vigils for the victims.
We grieve with you. We stand with you. We feel your pain. I have listened very carefully to some of the stories that we've heard from the members of the families who've been so tragically impacted by this. Families who were going to travel to Iran to see other members of their family who they hadn't seen for years and whose lives have now been tragically and unjustly cut short. We are going to stand with you. As the mayor said, you know, we've stood on this spot at other difficult moments in this city's and this country's recent past, and we've come together, and that's what Canadians do, time and time again.
I want to say particularly to the families, but to the Iranian community here in Toronto, that you are strong people. You know, I don't think any of us ever expect life to be fair. But I want to just say that you have experienced in your lives a particularly high level of injustice and unfairness. You have worked so hard to come here to build a new life, as so many Canadians have, but the Iranian community has worked so hard. You value education, you value contribution to the community. You work hard all the time, and I want to just acknowledge that and say to you that we are the better for having you here, that we are all together.
I learned earlier today that it was a missile that hit the plane and brought it down. I want to see officials to follow up the case and make sure those people who've been behind these attacks brought into justice. It's a big pain for Iranian community wherever they live. They moved up here for a better life, but still they are not safe. They want to keep their connections with their families, with their roots, but once they want to fulfill those dreams and connections, still something wrong happens. Something very bad and tragic happens to them.
She is with her 2 kids, Arnika and Arsam. Arsam, 11 years old. She was 8 years old. She was an architect. She was like 38 years old. I cannot believe it that I am holding her picture and she's not here anymore. It's unbelievable. It's like, I cannot believe it.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau held private meetings this morning with families of plane crash victims, and some Canadian universities are holding memorial services today and on the weekend for faculty and students who died in the crash. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin announced new sanctions against Iran, which will target 8 senior officials involved in destabilizing activities in the Middle East, as well as this week's missile strike.
As previously announced by the President, we are announcing additional sanctions against the Iranian regime as a result of the attack on U.S. and allied troops. First, the President is issuing an executive order authorizing the imposition of additional sanctions against any individual owning, operating, trading with, or assisting sectors of the Iranian economy, including construction, manufacturing, textiles, and mining. And let me be clear, these will be both primary and secondary sanctions. Second, we are announcing 17 specific sanctions against Iran's largest steel and iron manufacturers, 3 Seychelles-based entities, and a vessel involved in the transfer of products. As a result of these actions, we will cut off billions of dollars of support to the Iranian regime, and we will continue our enforcement of other entities. Third, we are taking action against 8 senior Iranian officials who advanced the regime's destabilizing activity and were involved in Tuesday's ballistic missile strike.
Today, President Trump is delivering on the pledge that he made. The day after Iran attacked American forces in Iraq, there will be a series of new sanctions. Secretary Mnuchin just mentioned 8 senior Iranian officials that are responsible for the regime's violence both at home and abroad. We're striking at the heart of the Islamic Republic's inner security apparatus. As long as Iran's outlaws' ways continue, we will continue to impose sanctions. Finally, I want to reiterate President Trump's concern for Americans and dual national citizens detained inside of Iran. Iran knows these individuals have committed no crime. They know the charges against them are fake, and we will do all that we can to get each of them returned home safely.
Meanwhile, activists say unidentified planes have hit targets in Syria near the border with Iraq, killing 8 Iraqi militiamen. 2 Iraqi officials have said the planes struck vehicles belonging to pro-Iran militias. They say the strike was most likely carried out by Israeli warplanes, but offered no evidence. The Israeli military has not yet commented. Dozens of protesters gathered outside a New York courthouse today where jury selection in the Harvey Weinstein rape trial is underway. The women hope to raise awareness about the laws and legal systems that don't work for rape survivors.
We are here because we stand in solidarity with rape survivors around the world, and our big problem is that legal systems everywhere don't work for rape survivors. The legal systems are slanted on the rights of defendants to defend themselves, and that same thing actually impedes the ability of victims to get justice. My message is the laws and the legal system must change so that impunity is no longer there for defendants.
Hal Roberts had a chance to sit down with Bethany Jett. She is co-author of a new book called Platinum Faith. She writes about the challenges that life can throw our way and how to respond to those in faith.
This is a journey to not feel stuck or stressed or frustrated, just to know that sometimes the journey is hard, but with whatever characteristic you're working on at the time, there is hope, and God has a purpose for your life no matter what you're going through.
You can watch the rest of this interview later in today's program. A second baby has been born in the U.S. through a transplanted womb. The 33-year-old mother, Jennifer Gobrecht, underwent a 10-hour procedure back in 2018 after receiving a uterus from a deceased donor. She says it was all worth it after now giving birth to her son, Benjamin. Doctors leading the trial in Philadelphia say transplantation could give couples another option besides adoption and surrogacy. Entertainment Tonight reports that Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, boarded a flight yesterday to return to BC amid intense speculation about a possible royal move to Canada. ET has also confirmed that her husband, Prince Harry, is due to follow the Duchess early next week. The Duke and Duchess announced plans Tuesday to step away from some of their royal duties, a day after the pair returned to the UK from a vacation on Vancouver Island, fueling theories they were looking at the island as a possible part-time home. And if you're planning on taking in a film this weekend, please have a look at this week's Movie Mill Minute.
Arctic Dogs, a family-friendly animated film starring Swifty the Fox, voiced by Jeremy Renner. He works in the mailroom, but he's got bigger aspirations. He wants to become a top dog, a husky courier.
Hey, Swifty, please deliver this package for me.
I'm ready to go. Are you sure about this? What's the worst that could happen?
Good morning! I'm here to destroy your town!
Whoa.
In 1996, Richard Jewell, a security guard, discovered a bomb at the Olympics. However, he went from hero to suspect number one overnight in this Clint Eastwood-directed drama.
His accusers are two of the most powerful forces in the world. The United States government and the media.
I do want to help y'all. I'm law enforcement too. There is a bomb in Centennial Park.
Oscar winners Matt Damon and Christian Bale star in Ford versus Ferrari. It's the amazing true story of the Ford Motor Company as they develop the Shelby motor vehicle to take on the Ferrari head-on.
So the great Carroll Shelby is going to build a car to beat Ferrari with a Ford. Correct. And how long did you tell them you needed? 200 or 300 years? 90 days.
Well, the temperature was decent for a January day today, but make sure you have a block heater on standby. The mercury will be dropping this week. A full look at the weather picture is coming right up. Taking a look at our 7-day forecast, partly cloudy tonight with a 60% chance of flurries and fog patches developing as well and dipping down to a low of -8. For tomorrow, a mix of sun and cloud and a 30% chance of flurries late in the afternoon. We will also have a northwest wind gusting from 20 to 40, and the temperature will drop off to -13 in the afternoon. Sunday, overcast with a chilly high of only -21, and things will get even cooler on Monday with a high of -26 and a mix of sun and cloud. For Tuesday, expect snow and -27. A mix of sun and cloud for Wednesday and -24. A high of -25 is expected for Thursday. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is -2 with an average low of -14. Highest temperature on this date was recorded back in 1941 at 12 degrees. Our record low was -37 in 1974. Sunrise was at 8:26 and sunset at 4:51. Looking at tomorrow's national forecast, Victoria should receive rain and see a high near 7 degrees. Expect rain as well for Vancouver and a high of 3. Snow and -18 for Edmonton, -17 for Calgary tomorrow. Snow for both Saskatoon and Regina. Saskatoon getting up to -13 and -11 for Regina. Expect clouds with a high near -17 in Winnipeg. Periods of rain for much of Ontario tomorrow, +11 in Toronto, 8 in Ottawa, and 10 for Montreal. In the Maritimes, lots of rain for Fredericton and a high of 9. Charlottetown will also get some rain, and 8. Halifax, Nova Scotia will get up to a high of +9. -1 and a mix of sun and cloud for St. John's.
Here is today's BCN ski report. Marmot Basin had 1 centimeter of fresh snow with a 114 centimeter base. Castle Mountain has had 22 centimeters of fresh snow with a 65 centimeter base. Sunshine Village had 7 centimeters of fresh powder with a 145 centimeter base. Lake Louise has had 5 centimeters of fresh snow and now has a 128 centimeter base. Mount Norquay also had 5 centimeters of the fresh stuff and a 65 centimeter base. No new snow at Nakiska, and they've had a 109 centimeter base. No new snow as well at Whistler, BC, but they have a 221 centimeter base. Panorama's had 6 centimeters of new snow and an 85 centimeter base. Whitefish, Montana's had 18 centimeters of new snow and a 133 centimeter base.
The Canadian job market bounced back last month after November saw the biggest monthly loss since the financial crisis. The economy gained 35,200 jobs in December, and the unemployment rate ticked down to 5.6%. Senior economist at BMO Capital Markets, Robert Kavchik, says the jobs report will allow the Bank of Canada to breathe easier as the job market finished 2019 on a solid note. The central bank is set to make its next interest rate decision on January 22nd. U.S. employers downshifted on hiring in December, adding 145,000 jobs heading into a presidential election year. The U.S. Labor Department says the unemployment rate held steady at 3.5% for the second straight month, prolonging a half-century low. Hiring slipped after robust gains of 256,000 in November. Tim Hortons has looked to another fast food franchise for its new chief marketing officer. It has named Hope Bagazi to replace Axel Schwan, who was appointed regional president of Tim Hortons for Canada and the U.S. in October, and was later also given responsibility for Latin America. Bagazi joins the coffee and donut chain after a 15-year career with McDonald's Canada, where she led the national marketing team. It's the latest management shuffle after it was announced that Tim Hortons president Alex Macedo would be leaving the company in March. Lisa Raitt has become the latest high-profile member of Parliament to move over to Canada's banking sector. CIBC says it has hired the former federal Conservative cabinet minister as vice chair of global investment banking. It says she will focus on developing and fostering senior-level client relationships and business development globally as part of CIB's capital markets team. Raitt was first elected in an Ontario riding in 2008, but was defeated in the federal election last fall. Now here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 1.08 points today to 17,234. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 133 points to 28,823, and the S&P 500 was down 9 points to 3,265, and the Nasdaq was down almost 25 points to 9,178. Oil was down 44 cents per barrel to $59.12 a barrel. Natural gas was up 4 cents to $2.21. Gold was up 10 cents to $1,562.34 per ounce. And silver was also up 21 cents on the day to $18.12 per ounce. Wheat came in at $229 per metric ton. Barley is at $232 per metric ton. Canola at $469 per metric ton. And corn at $282 per metric ton. Live cattle were up 70 cents to $127.55. Feeder cattle up 68 cents to $147.80. And lean hogs were up 23 cents to $68.26. The Canadian dollar was up slightly to 0.7662 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, a tragic two-vehicle collision early this morning near Taber, Alberta, has claimed the lives of 4 people. 6 others have been hospitalized. RCMP are continuing their investigation as to what caused the crash. Freedom of speech on Canadian university campuses used to be the norm, but not so much these days, it seems. Hal Roberts sat down with John Carpe, president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, to discuss this and more. That is straight ahead. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. The Troyanda Ukrainian Dance Club is celebrating Ukrainian New Year's Saturday, January 18th at the German Canadian Club. The festivities will feature a special performance by the Troyanda Dance Club, followed by a Ukrainian dinner with pierogies, sausage, cabbage rolls, and more. Plus, live music by Ukrainian band Absolute. The evening also includes a silent auction, raffles, games, and a midnight lunch. Tickets are $55 and can be purchased by calling Donna at 403-315-3492. Big Brothers Big Sisters in Lethbridge is searching for volunteers to mentor children and youth in their various programs. Volunteers commit anywhere from 1 hour a week to 1 full year. They have many kids on their waitlist that are looking for a big brother or sister. Make a difference in a child's life and start something big. For more information, call 403-328-9355 or email info.leth@bigbrothersbigsisters.ca. Looking for a fun place where you and your kids can play? Come for a fun family night to the Family Center in downtown Lethbridge, Thursday evenings from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. Me and My Family promotes learning through play and provides a safe place for kids to explore through physical activity, imagination, and creativity. For more information, visit famcenter.ca. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The battle for free speech and freedom of religion continues, and it's not likely to go away anytime soon. Joining me now to talk about it, look at some of the interesting cases, is John Carpe, president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, joining me once again via Skype from Calgary. John, the University of BC Free Speech Club had scheduled a journalist to speak at an event called Understanding Antifa Violence, but UBC has decided to cancel the event. Why is that?
Well, Antifa is a violent left-wing activist group that will engage in vandalism and actually physically assaulted a journalist by the name of Andy Ngo. These people wear black face masks to hide their identity, and they beat up whomever they accuse of being a racist. In their sole view, and they call just about everybody a racist. But Andy Ngo was invited to speak at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver for January 29th on the topic of Antifa violence, which he himself was a victim of in Portland, Oregon, back in June of 2019. And the university gave green light, and then suddenly, just a few days before Christmas, canceled the event and said, no, we're not going to have Andy Ngo talking about Antifa violence because of safety and security. And they have not elaborated, but we have reason to believe that the university is scared of Antifa violence, and so they want to pander to Antifa and please Antifa, which is very, very problematic, because if you don't stand up to these groups and if you allow them to dictate who can and cannot speak, you've completely lost the free society. And universities, of all places, should be upholding free speech rights.
So what legal options does the Free Speech Club actually have at this point?
Well, the Justice Center is representing the Free Speech Club, and we are in the process of getting instructions to commence court proceedings against the university, because thus far it appears the university is not changing its mind to cancel the event. And the club has spent, thousands of dollars to advertise and promote the event and to pay for the airfare to get their speaker up to Vancouver, et cetera, et cetera. So we're looking at probably filing some court papers in the days ahead and suing the university and seeking an injunction, seeking a declaration that the university is required to uphold this contract.
John, there was a free speech victory in your case against the University of Alberta. Tell me more about that.
The University of Alberta was reprimanded by the Alberta Court of Appeal in regards to a security fee, $17,500 security fee, which the University of Alberta had imposed on a small campus pro-life club back in 2016. And the story behind it was that in 2015, the campus pro-life club obtained the permission of the university to put up a stationary educational display on campus for 2 days. And there are a bunch of social justice warriors who did not take kindly to this, and they very publicly plotted on Facebook and social media that they were going to interrupt the event and obstruct it, blockade it with sheets and towels and banners, and shut down the event, and make sure that there was no intellectual discussion or debate on campus. And the campus security told these obstructors, blockaders, that they were violating the Code of Student Behavior, which they were, and yet did absolutely nothing to discipline these students, and just stood by and watched while the pro-lifers event basically got trampled into the ground, got shut down. The next year, the students said, in 2016, they went back to the university and said, we want another campus event to have a 2-day educational display. And the university said, sure, just pay us $17,500 and you can go right ahead. The university has never explained why it should be the pro-life students who merely want to exercise their legal right to express their opinions on campus in a peaceful fashion, why they should have to pay any money versus the people that are publicly bragging on Facebook about shutting down the event. Why don't they have to pay? In any event, the pro-life club took the university to court, lost at trial, but then just recently, January the 6th, the Alberta Court of Appeal issued a unanimous ruling to reprimand the University of Alberta about this $17,500 security fee.
So in other words, it's being reimbursed.
Well, it was never paid. And the sad effect was the students have not had an event in the past 4 years because, a group of students, even a group of adults would have a hard time coming up with $17,500. But if you're, if you're 20 years old and you're a university student, where do you come into that kind of money? So the club has not had, they've been able to do some things, handing out flyers and pamphlets and stuff, but they haven't been able to hold an event on campus in the past 4 years because of this security fee, which they were not able to pay.
So, John, the idea of demanding the innocent side pay for security costs is happening at many universities. Is there some way to prevent this from ever happening again?
The best solution would be for for each provincial government in each province to simply make a change to the law and tell these universities that they're not allowed to punish innocent people with security fees and use security fees as a censorship tool, and that if they're going to issue invoices for security, it should be levied against the troublemakers that are actually causing the problem, whether it's violent groups like Antifa or whether it's nonviolent obstruction, which is also a very bad thing for killing off free speech. But it should be the people that are causing the problem that should have to pay the security fees. And where the universities up until now get it completely wrong is that, whether it's a presentation against Antifa or it's a pro-life club or men's issues awareness, anything controversial, they punish the people that want to speak out an unpopular message by saying, well, you can't host an event on campus unless you pay a huge sum of money.
Is there a good reason that the University of Alberta Security decided not to charge any of the students for disrupting the pro-life event?
It was just a disgrace, and the university is talking out of both sides of its mouth, because on the one hand, the university says that the behavior of these blockaders and obstructors who shut down the pro-life event, somehow their behavior does not warrant any disciplinary measures, which is kind of like saying, their behavior really wasn't all that bad. It's nothing to worry about, nothing to get excited about. At the same time, the university says, oh, but the threat to safety and security is so grave and so elevated that the Pro-Life Club has to pay $17,500. Well, that's a total contradiction. I mean, either the behavior of these blockaders was, was bad or was not bad, but the university wants to have it both ways.
Transgender activist Jessica Yaniv is in the news again, John. For our viewers not familiar with this person and the numerous human rights complaints filed, can you share a little bit of backstory and the latest complaint filed?
Yeah, Yaniv is a person in British Columbia who is born biological male, has male genitalia, identifies as a woman, and approached at least 14 female estheticians, waxologists, and requested a Brazilian bikini wax, which is a waxing service for the genital area. And the women, many of them are East Indian, a lot of them are Sikh, but the women said, we don't want to wax male genitalia, we're declining the service. And Yaniv filed more than 14 human rights complaints against these women, subjected them to a lot of stress. Some of the businesses closed. He was demanding, in some cases, as much as $15,000 and said, pay me $15,000 and I'll go away and I'll withdraw the complaint. So he was using those tactics to extract money from these women. Finally, after a lot of ordeals, the BC Human Rights Tribunal heard 3 of the cases in July of 2019 and issued a decision in October of 2019 dismissing all of the complaints. And so Yaniv lost these complaints. But just recently, Yaniv has filed a new complaint, again, against a female esthetician, a beauty salon, and most of the people there most of the women working there are East Indians and Sikhs. And this time Yaniv is asking for a leg waxing rather than genital waxing. And the ladies have also refused that because they don't feel it's not as intimate, but it's still kind of an intimate service. And there are places where men can go to get their legs waxed, right? But Yaniv says, well, I identify as a woman, therefore I want to go to a female salon. And that is Yaniv's argument.
So does Yaniv have a legal leg to stand on in the leg waxing complaint?
It appears to be that Yaniv would have stronger grounds. However, this is still quite an intimate service. I mean, whoever's receiving it, you're usually stripped down to your underwear, or maybe you're not wearing anything at all. And when it gets to the upper part of the leg, it's just something women are not. A woman shouldn't have to provide that to a man, is basically our position under the Charter's freedom of association guarantee, as well as the security of the person. Women don't feel safe providing a service that is not super intimate, but quasi-intimate. And in our society, I mean, there's so many places to go to. This seems to be very much a political move to try to make a political statement, and we're going to bat for the women that Yaniv is complaining against.
So is there anything that can be done, John, to prevent individuals from continuously launching what appears to be frivolous human rights complaints, like you said, making a political statement, and therefore making life unnecessarily difficult for people trying to simply earn an honest living?
Well, in the long run, we need to change the legislation, right? Because right now, typically, the legislation is stacked in favor of complainants and against people, usually often businesses, against whom the complaint is filed, right? So the whole system is quite biased. They appoint the decision makers, the tribunal members are appointed on the basis of their beliefs and activism on the plaintiff's side of the equation. They're not promoted on the basis of their objectivity. So these are all problems. An interesting twist in the Yaniv case in BC is that the BC Human Rights Tribunal surprisingly did order Yaniv to pay $2,000 to each of the three women who were successful in defending against Yaniv's claim. And so far, Yaniv has not paid any of the $6,000. And so we're going to be raising this with the tribunal as well, that maybe Yaniv's latest complaint should be put on the back burner until the first $6,000 are paid.
The Supreme Court of British Columbia recently made a decision that is a little concerning with regard to elementary school children. John, the idea is to force kids against their wishes to participate in certain religious ceremonies. Do you have more details on that?
There's a case of Candace Servatius versus the School Board number 70, which is the Port Alberni School District on Vancouver Island. The situation there was that the school sent a letter home to parents, advising parents that there would be an Aboriginal smudging ceremony, which consists of burning sage and then waving the smoke from the burning sage over the children, for the purpose of, the school said, for the purpose of cleansing the spirits of the children of bad energy. And the mother did not take kindly to this, went to the school to ask for more information, and was told, "Oh, we're sorry, we've already subjected your kids to this." So the letter wasn't even sent out with ample notice. The problem here is it runs completely contrary to other court decisions which have said that we cannot say the Lord's Prayer in public schools because it is coercive and it's not good enough to simply provide some kids with an exemption from the Lord's Prayer because then they might feel that they're kind of pointed out or made to declare their disagreement with the Christian faith or whatever, right? So now we've come full circle. The court ruling said, well, this is not religious, it's just cultural.
But in fact, weren't there prayers that were part of this as well? How can it just be cultural then?
Well, there was also a school assembly, and there was a native elder, and there was a beating of drums, and there was a prayer said, and the prayer was said to a god of some kind. And I think if there is a Christian pastor coming into the school and saying a Christian prayer, you'd likely see objections, and you would see the school very quickly apologizing. But there's got to be one standard. You can't say that we're going to allow some forms of spirituality in the schools, but not other forms. This is not tenable. So we are considering an appeal of the decision. Because the judge also ignored a lot of the facts, that the room was completely filled with smoke. The school said that the purpose was to cleanse the furniture of bad energy. The school even said that there had been a bullying incident in that classroom, and somebody hurt themselves by bumping into the furniture, and so we needed this spiritual cleansing of the bad energy that was in the classroom. I mean, if that's not religious, I don't know what is.
So John, is this the new norm? Should parents just be expected to go with the flow, that students are now required to participate in what they consider religious ceremonies, which maybe run counter to their own religious beliefs?
Well, no, parents can and should object. Here, there are some nuances in the facts insofar as apparently the smoke was not waved individually over each child. So there is a slight distinction there. However, there's lots of smoke in the classroom, and the school had stated that it was for spiritual purposes. What parents should do, though, is ask and get the information and raise their objections and make it clear to teachers and principals. If parents are opposed to this because they don't want their child subjected to a religious ritual, parents have to speak up. It shouldn't have to end up in court. And I think when parents do speak up, in a lot of cases, the schools are going to take that into account, and at least in some cases, the schools are going to modify their behavior, right? But if parents are just silent and just suffer in silence and suck it up, put up with it, that's not a good approach.
And I remember what my parents used to say too, John: where there's smoke, there's fire. John Carpe, president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, thanks a lot for joining me today from Calgary.
Glad to be with you, Hal.
Life is full of challenges, but is it possible that God can use those hardships, health challenges, and flaws for His good? Joining me now to chit-chat a bit about it is Bethany Jett, co-author of Platinum Faith, and she joins me from Florida, where there's no snow. Bethany, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you so much. It's warm here.
Bethany, can you give me a bit of an overview of the book and who it's really aimed at?
Yes, the concept is that platinum, the metal, has 12 characteristics. And my co-author, Michelle Medlock Adams, and I have a company named Platinum Literary Services. And that's why we named the company Platinum Literary. And one day she said, I think this really applies to faith. Those same awesome characteristics could be applied to our faith journey. And that's how the book was born. And so the book is geared towards women, but we've had a lot of men say that it's just as relevant for them. And it's taking each of those characteristics of the metal platinum and saying, how can I strive to be better in this specific area in my faith journey? And Michelle always says it's not about perfection, it's about the progress, the journey to get there.
Now, platinum is indeed a very rare and precious metal. Can you really share what some of the elements of platinum metal are?
One of our favorite characteristics is that platinum is so useful. A lot of people think it's just meant for jewelry, and it's great in jewelry, but it's also found in cancer-fighting drugs, in majority of the things that we use every day, and even in smoke detectors, which is something you would never guess, and yet smoke detectors save lives. And so in the same way, we can have a quiet faith, but when God's calling us to step out to be used, we have to make noise, just like a smoke detector.
And you believe that obtaining a platinum faith is really a process. What kinds of things should we expect to encounter along the path of pursuing a stronger faith?
One of the other characteristics is that platinum withstands the heat, and we're going to have obstacles on this journey. It is not easy, and that's why having a platinum faith, trying to attain that, means having a strong faith, knowing that when those hard times come, God is there, standing on the truth of Scripture and getting through it, just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We had to use them withstand the heat.
Now, you write that sometimes women fall into the comparison trap. How can women remember that they may be different, but that they have a God-ordained calling and purpose?
It is so hard with social media sometimes because we see the pretty and the perfect. Like even tonight, my desk was covered in papers and projects, and I scooted it all away just so I'd have this perfect background. And I think that the more vulnerable we are on social, sharing those dirty times, those messy times, it can help us relate to other women and realize there is no perfect. There is just the appearance.
Why is it so important for women to have a close community of friends? And on the flip side, what are some of the cautions that go with those relationships?
You know, we were built for community. And one of the characteristics with platinum is that it bonds easily with other metals, but that it also doesn't get corrupted by them. And that's such a biblical principle about paying attention to who your inner circle is, just like Jesus did. He had a lot of followers, but his group became smaller and smaller with his disciples, Peter, James, and John. And then John says he was the disciple Jesus loved, going down even to the one. And with that, it's hard sometimes to have the discernment to know how close to be to somebody. And that's really where the faith aspect comes in, and praying over those relationships so that they can be strong and healthy.
Now, Bethany, you have an allergy to a resin found in things like stickers, tape, and paper. In fact, you have some gloves. Can you show them to our viewers there?
I do. I thought I'd have my book cover, and I'm allergic to the cover of my own book.
Wow.
So I have my gloves.
So what do you say to women whose faith is tested through physical challenges like what you're going through?
I think it's very interesting in my case that I'm an author, and I was homeschooling at the time that I found out I had this paper allergy, this ingredient allergy. And I would say look at where you're being tested and see, is God trying to use you in that way? Because maybe that's why the test is coming there. I had so many people say, we are not surprised that Satan is attacking your hands, that I need to type, I need to write, I need to be touching paper and books and things like that. So maybe there's something there, and maybe God's going to use that to further his kingdom and his purpose, even though it's a frustrating or even detrimental trial.
Now, your co-author, Michelle, was a caregiver to her mother when she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Many caregivers endure fatigue, stress, and end up questioning God's plan. What advice do you have for those people in these kinds of situations?
I know that was such a hard time for her when she was dealing with that. She was so close to her mother. It is difficult. And honestly, I think that's why Platinum Faith is a journey. It's something that we're attaining to and never really claiming that we have it, because even in those moments, there's doubt, there's questioning, there's wondering, there's worry on both sides. And that is when I think standing on the scriptures that say that, who God is, what he says for you, and knowing that you cannot get rid of that love, that is strong, and just not believing what the heart is telling you, but knowing in your mind what God said is true.
Bethany, many of us struggle with shortcomings and failures, but instead of condemning others, what is the best way to approach them or their situations?
One of the best ways that I have found goes back to a company philosophy that we have. And the phrase is grace upon grace upon grace. So in the business world with my family, the idea is if someone makes you upset or drops the ball or does something wrong or you're frustrated, the idea is to always give them the benefit of the doubt. Did something happen? Can I help you do this? What can I do to make this work? Instead of getting angry and then taking that other approach, instead of reacting, taking a second and then responding, which is another one of our Platinum Faith chapters. Actually.
Yeah, you caution to be responsive, not reactive to life situations. What is the danger of being reactive right away, like a knee-jerk reaction, instead of maybe looking at the big picture, sitting back, being more thoughtful?
I think when we react, and myself included, I'm not giving God time to work in the situation. I'm not asking for discernment or wisdom. And usually my reaction is a negative one. It's usually an anger or I'm upset about something instead of taking time to be thoughtful. So that is one that I think about in my daily life, probably out of all the characteristics, is responding, not reacting, because relationships can be damaged so quickly with one harsh word, the wrong thing said, where it could have been avoided if there had just been a little bit of time in between.
How therapeutic was it really for you? And what did you learn along the way when you wrote the book Platinum Faith?
Platinum Faith is one of the hardest books I've ever written. I have 5 books now. Michelle has written close to over 90 books. She's a best-selling children's author. And she said the same thing, that every section of this book was so gut-wrenching and difficult. And we really felt that it was because we were going really deep into these aspects of faith, and we wanted to get it right, because we did not want women or any reader to feel like this was a preachy book. We wanted them to feel like we were walking alongside of them on this journey of Platinum Faith. And so that made it even more difficult. And now that it's over, we're really seeing the fruit from that. And even in our own lives, thinking on those same characteristics and working on them ourselves still.
Do you think many of your readers can really associate and understand, even relate to what you and Michelle have gone through?
We have had great feedback that certain chapters, different sections resonate in certain areas of their lives. one of our friends even said, her neighbor was upset about something very minor, but there was a chapter in the book she had just read that helped her decide to take a positive approach and try to mend that relationship, even though it wasn't her fault, for that one. And so just even small things like that, we've been hearing that, yes, this is actually really helping strengthen their faith. And that was the goal the whole time.
Now, you have a chapter on being authentic. We often wear masks at church or on social media. What are your thoughts on being real with ourselves, with others, and most importantly, with God?
It can be difficult to self-assess or be self-aware sometimes, because we want to have this image where we have it all together, especially if you're trying to get people to trust you in business or work together. That's really important. So how do you juggle being transparent on social media if you also know that your boss or future clients are looking at it as well? So that can be really difficult. One of the verses we talk about with that one is the verse that in 1 Samuel where it says that God looks at the heart, and always thinking back to that. Is my heart in the right place? And then are my actions actually showing what is in my heart, and looking at it in that order instead of the other way around?
What do you think when somebody says to you, if you want to really know who the true person is, in all honesty, see what they're like when they're alone instead of when they're with others?
It's true. And along with that, I wrote a dating book, and one of my suggestions was pay attention to how the person you're dating treats somebody who can do nothing for them. The server, the valet, someone who cannot get them ahead in life. How do they treat the person who's actually in a service position to them? That tells you a lot about somebody's character.
Any final thoughts on what you hope readers will get out of reading your book, Platinum Faith?
From the bottom of both my heart and Michelle's heart, what we hope readers get out of Platinum Faith is that, like we said in the beginning, this is a journey to not feel stuck or stressed or frustrated, just to know that sometimes the journey is hard, but with whatever characteristic you're working on at the time, there is hope, and God has a purpose for your life, no matter what you're going through.
Bethany Jett, co-author of Platinum Faith, thanks a lot for joining me today from Florida.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.